The laugh ended when he set his ring by Derek's chip bowl and walked out. I'd just joked, "He's too weak to protect me," and kept smiling like it was still a bit. In my head, I decided he only needed air, because admitting I'd humiliated him hurt more. "My name's Harper. I'm 34, born and raised in Colorado. I'll be straight with you. I always figured Nolan and I were pretty steady. He's 36, easygoing, not much rattles him, which usually balances me out because I can run a little hot. That night, we were at his buddy Derek's place for a party. Nolan doesn't keep a big circle, so when he actually wants to be social, I show up and try. My plan was simple. Swing by, grab a couple drinks, bail after a few hours. Everything started normal. The place was packed. Most folks knew each other. No shock. Nolan has known a lot of them for years. I didn't recognize everyone, but that never slows me down. I can blend or take center stage, depending on the room, and that night, I was in the mood to mingle. While Nolan caught up with Derek, I drifted around, made small talk, laughed at the right spots. A few hours in, we're in a loose circle, trading stories. Somebody tosses out a question about relationships, how much you trust your partner to have your back if something went sideways. Totally hypothetical. I glanced at Nolan beside me, quiet as usual, and without thinking, I smirked and said, "Oh, Nolan wouldn't be able to protect me. Just look at him." People cracked up. That little rush hit, so I kept pushing it. I joked about how he never works out, how opening jars is an event, and said if we got mugged we'd both be victims because he'd freeze. The circle was howling. Even Derek threw in a leg day joke. Nolan didn't bite. He sat there with that tight half smile, the one that says he's trying not to make a scene, but I could tell it wasn't landing for him. Instead of reading the room and easing off, I doubled down. I pointed at his arms and tossed out, "Seriously, he's got arms like a sixth grader. No offense, babe." More laughter, big reaction. In my head, it was just solid crowd work, and I wasn't exactly inventing stuff. Then, out of nowhere, Nolan stood up. No warning. He grabbed his jacket and walked out. No comment, no wave, nothing. At first I figured bathroom break or fresh air. A couple minutes passed. He didn't come back. He was gone. The air changed on the spot. Laughter end. Awkward quiet settled in. Derek looked over and asked, "You okay?" That was kind of harsh. That threw me. To me, it was a joke. We tease. It's not like I broke some sacred rule. I shrugged it off and said he was probably tired. Inside, I was annoyed. What was his deal? I wasn't lying, and it's not like anyone was going to think less of him. If anything, I thought rolling with it would make him look good. I hung around a little longer, but the vibe was off. People were polite, not warm. Irritation mixed with embarrassment, so I said my goodbyes and called an Uber. When I got home, Nolan was in bed, eyes closed like he was asleep. I left it, figured he'd cool off overnight. Next morning was different. He barely talked. When he did, it was short, clipped, like he was punching a time clock. I asked what his problem was. He looked me dead on and said, "You humiliated me in front of my friends." That caught me sideways because I honestly didn't think it was that deep. I told him, "It was a joke, Nolan. Don't be so sensitive." He didn't argue. He just walked out of the room. That's when it hit me. He wasn't going to let this slide. When I rolled out of bed the next morning, Nolan was already parked at the kitchen table with a mug, eyes on his phone. He didn't glance up when I came in, which got under my skin fast. Okay, yeah, he'd been salty last night, but the silent treatment, not my thing. I poured coffee, clinked the spoon a little louder than necessary, and said, "Morning." Nothing. He just kept scrolling like I was background noise. "So we're really doing this?" I asked, sliding into the chair across from him. "If we're going to be weird, let's at least do it out loud." He set his phone down, finally met my eyes. "Why did you think it was okay to put me on blast in front of my friends?" His voice wasn't raised, but the edge was there. "Oh, come on, Nolan. We're still on that. I rolled my eyes. It was a joke. I wasn't trying to tear you down. Well, you did, he shot back. You made me look like an idiot. You don't think I know I'm not the strongest guy in the room? You didn't have to make it a show. I leaned back, crossed my arms. And you dipped. You left me sitting there at your friend's place. You're mad about a couple of jokes, but walking out on your wife is fine. How does that add up? I had to get out, he said, shaking his head. Do you have any idea how disrespectful that was? You don't talk about your husband like that, not in front of everyone. It felt like you wanted to embarrass me. I laughed once, short, more air than humor. It was teasing, Nolan. Everyone was laughing. I didn't grab a mic and give a speech about your failures. And honestly, you walking out didn't exactly prove me wrong. You left me to Uber home like some random +1. What kind of man does that? His cheeks went red, jaw tight. You still don't get it, he said, louder now. You don't respect me. If you did, you wouldn't have kept going after you saw my face. You wouldn't have turned me into a punchline. I threw my hands up. I respect you, but you didn't act like someone worth respecting last night. A grown man doesn't storm off and leave his wife when he's upset over a couple of lines. You could have pulled me aside, said, "Hey, enough." You bailed, and now you're going to lecture me on respect. He stared for a beat, breathing through his nose, thinking it over. Then he dragged a hand through his hair and sighed. You're right, he muttered. I shouldn't have left you there. That was on me. I raised an eyebrow. Didn't expect that. Exactly, I said, leaning forward. So maybe next time don't make it bigger than it is. Talk to me. We could have avoided this whole thing. He looked down at his mug. I just wish you'd think about how your words land, he said, quieter. I'm not asking you to change who you are. Just think. I shrugged. No point kicking the beehive now that he'd given ground. Fine, I'll think, but you also need to handle stuff better. Deal? He nodded, the tightness still there. I could tell he wasn't done with it, not really. But for me, in my head, the box was checked. After that talk, I felt pretty solid. He'd apologized, which meant I'd won the point. As far as I was concerned, we could put it behind us. Sure, he moved around the house like a thundercloud for the rest of the day, but he'd cool off. He always did. That's our pattern. He gets spun up, I hold my line, he circles back. Truth is, that's how our whole setup runs. Nolan isn't a take-charge guy, not with plans, not with money, not even with what to watch after dinner. I've always been the one to set the calendar, pay the bills, make the calls, pick the movie. He never fought me on it. If anything, I think he liked letting me drive. So when I say I'm the one who keeps the gears turning, I'm not exaggerating. That's just our default. It works. Or at least, it always worked for me. A couple nights later, Nolan mentioned he was grabbing dinner with Derek and the guys, like that was all the context I needed. I raised an eyebrow but let it go. I could connect the dots. Boys' night, a round of burgers and beers, everybody patting him on the back and talking about how I'm a piece of work and he deserves better. I'd already seen the looks after the party. Guys like Derek swear they're above drama, but they pass rumors as fast as any group chat. I kept my mouth shut anyway. If he needed to vent, fine. Let him dump it out and come home. We'd reset and carry on. Only when he came back, something in him had shifted. It wasn't fireworks. He didn't slam doors or throw accusations. It was smaller than that, and somehow louder. He moved quieter. He kept staring past me like he was working a math problem in his head. I asked how dinner was. He shrugged. It was fine. I joked about Derek incinerating a steak just to crack his shell. He gave me a thin, polite smile. Food was good, just had a lot on my mind. That was new. Normally he'd recap who said what and which dumb story got the big laugh. Not this time. He brushed past it and turned in early, left me sitting there with questions and a bad feeling in my stomach. Over the next few days, more little changes stacked up. He didn't jump to agree with me. When I tossed out, "Movie," he said, "You pick." "I'll watch whatever. but the tone wasn't easygoing. It was edged, like a warning. When I brought up weekend plans, he casually mentioned he might go hiking with Derek. Hiking. This from a guy who treats outdoors like a parking lot between buildings. And it wasn't just his schedule. It was his posture, the way he stood. He carried himself like he'd stopped waiting for my green light. He didn't check my face before he made a choice. I won't lie. I didn't like it. Not because I'm trying to run his life. Okay, maybe I've gotten used to steering. But because it felt like he was closing a door and I didn't know why. One night I finally said it while we brushed our teeth. "You've been different. What's going on?" He looked at me, and for a second I thought he'd wave it off. Instead, he said, "I've been thinking. About us, about me, about what I want." That landed wrong in my chest. "What you want?" I kept my voice even. "What's that supposed to mean?" He shrugged like he'd practiced it. "Just that I've let a lot slide. I've been too passive. I need to start standing up for myself." I laughed it off, tried to keep it light, but something tugged at me. "You make it sound like I'm running a dictatorship. If this is still about the party, we already covered that." He held my eyes. "It's not just the party. It's everything." And just like that, the ground moved. We weren't talking about one bad joke anymore. We were talking about the whole system. For the first time, it hit me that he might not be okay living the way we've always lived. For the first time, I felt the wheel slip under my hands. A few evenings later, he came home with that set look, the one you get when you've rehearsed a speech all the way from the parking lot. I didn't ask. We ate in a quiet that felt heavy instead of peaceful. I was stacking plates when he finally said it. "We need to talk." I sighed, already annoyed, because nothing good ever starts with those 4 words. He came right out with it. No flinching, no hedging, just leaned back in the chair, arms folded, and asked, "Why do you treat me the way you do?" That threw me. "What's that even supposed to mean?" I said. He didn't blink. "The way you talk to me, the way you act like you're the only one who matters here. Do you even respect me, Harper? Be honest." I rolled my eyes because that's my first gear when something feels dramatic. "Of course I respect you, Nolan. You're my husband. Why are we even having this conversation?" He shook his head, frustrated in that quiet way he does. "Because you don't act like it. You embarrassed me in front of my friends. And when I told you how it felt, you turned it into me overreacting. You don't listen. You don't care what I want. Half the time it feels like I'm just here to soak up your shots." "That's not fair," I shot back. "I wasn't trying to humiliate you. I told you it was a joke. You're the one who made it into a big production." His jaw tightened. "Harper, it's not just the party," he said, voice getting a harder edge. "It's the pattern, the little digs, the way you wave me off when I try to say something real. If you respected me, you wouldn't treat me like that." My face got hot. "Don't act like you're a saint in all this," I said. "You never stand up for yourself. I have to run point on everything. Plans, money, the whole deal. And now you're going to sit there and pretend I'm the villain. Maybe if you stepped up more, I wouldn't have to be in charge all the time." "That's not an answer," he cut in. "Why did you marry me if you don't respect me? Was I just convenient? A safe choice? Because I'm starting to think I'm not the guy you actually wanted." The words hit like a slap. "That's ridiculous," I snapped. "You're twisting this into something it's not." He didn't back off. "Am I? Because the way you treat me doesn't feel like love. It feels like I'm just here. Not enough for you. Maybe I never was." "That's not true," I said, but even I heard the wobble. "You're overthinking it. Your friends are in your head, aren't they? They've been feeding you this, and now you want to pin everything on me." He shook his head, steady. "My friends didn't make me feel this way. You did. They just gave me the nudge to say it out loud. And I'm glad they did, because we can't keep doing this. It's not healthy for either of us." I leaned back, folded my arms like a shield. "So what now? Counseling? Divorce? You ready to throw the marriage in the trash because I made a couple jokes you didn't like?" This isn't about jokes, he said, calmer than before. It's about respect. It's about whether you even want to be with me. Because right now, it doesn't feel like you do. I scoffed, but it came out thin. You're blowing this out of proportion. He held my eyes. I'm asking for the truth. Is there someone else, or was I just never the one? That landed in my stomach like a brick. I opened my mouth to deny it, to fire back and end the whole thing with volume. But his tone stopped me. He wasn't raging. He was finished. Not furious. Done. I stood up too fast, chair legs scraping the floor. You know what, Nolan? Maybe your buddies are right. Maybe this is a lost cause. You want to sit here and play the victim like you've been perfect? You haven't. And maybe, just maybe, I'm not the bad guy. Maybe we're just not meant to be. He didn't shoot back. He just looked at me with this calm, settled face. And for the first time, I realized he wasn't trying to win. He was trying to figure out if there was anything left to fight for. What do you want to do? He asked, voice low. Because I can't keep living like this, Harper. Either we fix it or we walk away. I didn't have a clean answer. For once, words didn't show up on command. The kitchen clock ticked. The dishwasher hummed. We sat there in a long, heavy quiet, both of us staring at the same table and seeing completely different futures. He laid it out clean. Fix it or walk away. I wasn't used to Nolan pinning me to a choice like that. Normally he'd soften, I'd sidestep, and we'd drift back to routine. Not this time. His face said he meant every word, and the room felt heavier for it. I exhaled like I had it handled. All right, if you want to fix it, we'll do counseling. His eyebrows ticked up, like he didn't expect me to agree. Really? Yes, I said, lacing my fingers like I was making a promise. I don't want to throw our marriage away. If counseling helps, I'm in. That wasn't a total lie. I didn't want a divorce. I liked the life we'd built, and he was part of that picture. But if I'm honest, I figured this was a wave. He'd ridden the pep talk from his buddies, felt tall for a week, and then gravity would pull him back. Scheduling therapy was easy to say. Following through was something else. I told him I'd find someone, make the call. Then days turned into weeks. Every time he asked, I had a reason. Work was crazy. The good ones were booked. I was waiting to hear back. At first, he took me at my word. Then he stopped asking. I took that as proof the wind had ended down. We were halfway through a sitcom one night when he turned and said, flat as a level, "You never scheduled counseling, did you?" I froze, then shrugged it off. I told you I'm trying. It's not that simple. He didn't blink. Don't lie. You never planned to. I rolled my eyes, armor up. Oh, come on, Nolan. Don't act like I don't care. I said I'd do it. He cut me off, voice calm but firm. You won't, and you don't care enough. If you did, we wouldn't be here. Here we go again, I muttered, folding my arms. Why do I always end up the villain? Because you won't own anything, he snapped, the volume finally climbing. You don't respect me. You don't take this seriously. I'm done pretending this works. I want a divorce. The words landed like a slap. What did you just say? I want a divorce, he repeated, steady as stone. This isn't healthy. You don't respect me, and I can't stay with someone who won't even try. I laughed, but it came out thin. You're not serious. I am, he said, eyes on mine. I've been serious for a while. I needed to be sure it couldn't be fixed. It can't. You're being ridiculous, I said, shaking my head. You'll cool off and hear how dumb this sounds. No, Harper, he said, and there was no heat in it, just clarity. I'm not mad. I'm clear. I deserve better. That's when it hit me. He wasn't bluffing. He wasn't angling to win. He meant it. Panic flared, and I went for the loudest weapon I had. I stood, chair legs scraping. A divorce? After everything I've done? After years of putting up with you being weak and passive and— Stop, he said, sharp. I plowed on. No, you're going to hear this. You're pathetic, Nolan. You always have been. You let me walk all over you for years, and now you think you're some big man because your little friends told you to grow a spine. You're a joke. Harper. No, I shouted, tears hot on my face. I wish I never married you. You're an embarrassment, a fragile, weak excuse for a man. You can't even handle a joke without running to your buddies like a kid. And now you think you're better than me. When the words finally stopped, the room went quiet except for my breathing. And in that quiet, it settled on me. There was no one else left to blame. Not Nolan, not his friends. Just me and what I'd said, out loud, where we both had to live with it. He watched me for a long beat, expression unreadable, like he was memorizing this version of us. Then he stood, walked to the door, and put his hand on the knob. He didn't slam it. He didn't threaten. He just looked back once, like he'd already made peace with his choice, and stepped into the hallway. You don't have to say anything else, he said, voice low and even. I'll stay at Derek's for now. If you figure out what you really want, call me. No door slam. No last look designed to wound. He just slipped out, and the quiet he left behind felt louder than any fight we'd ever had. For the first time since we started dating, I wasn't the one steering, and for the first time, I couldn't decide if I even wanted him to turn around and come back. The weeks that followed moved in slow, jagged pieces. Nolan crashed at Derek's most nights. Every few days he'd swing by for a clean stack of shirts or to dig through a cabinet for some charger I forgot we owned. Each time the door clicked open, the air shifted. I'd brace, try to arrange my face into something normal. He walked like a guest in his own house, eyes skimming past the photos we never got around to updating. He'd nod hello, ask where a box ended up, thank me if I pointed to it. His tone was polite the way you are with a stranger in line. No warmth, no shared shorthand. It stung in a place I didn't want to admit existed. I'd reach for small talk, weather, Derek's new grill, the game on Sunday, anything to chip at the ice. He'd answer in short, clean sentences, and then shoulder his bag and go. The latch would catch, and I'd drop onto the couch like my legs gave out. Some days I cried until my eyes ached. Other days I sat very still, telling myself I was fine. When the quiet got too big, I built little stories to live in. This was his friend's fault. They'd pumped him full of pep talks and pushed him to see me as the enemy. It was easier to believe that than to stare at the part I played. When the divorce came through, it was tidy on paper. No one cleaned the other out. I kept the house, he kept the car. We split the savings down the middle like we were doing math homework at the kitchen table. The judge said a few neutral words, and that was that. No winner, no loser. But walking out of that building, I felt lighter in all the wrong places, like someone had carved out a piece I couldn't glue back. After the signatures dried, Nolan stopped stopping by. If I saw him, it was through a screen. Every so often, his name would float to the top of my feed. A photo at a trailhead with Derek, a shot at some brewery with two guys I'd only ever seen at game nights, a group picture on a ridge I didn't even know he could find without a map. He looked fine, better than fine. The smile wasn't forced. His shoulders were set in that quiet way confidence sits, no puffing up, just steady. His friends commented with little fist bump emojis and proud of you, man. No one tagged me. No one reached out. At first it made me mad. How fast they closed ranks. How easy it was for them to act like I never existed. Then the anger burned down to an ember, and I had to admit what the smoke meant. They were his friends first. Maybe always. Maybe they'd never liked me much, but didn't say it out loud. The invites dried up. No more swing by, we're grilling. No more random, you coming? Texts before a game. It wasn't a freeze-out so much as a clean cut. 3 months into the quiet, the thing that bothered me most wasn't the silence. It was how good he seemed at living inside it. Every new photo was a small proof that he was okay. Happier, even. The curve of his mouth didn't look staged. He'd grown into this version of himself I used to wish for on birthdays. Shoulders back, eyes up, moving with his own momentum. Except now it existed without me, and that made the wish feel childish. I tried to move too. I downloaded 2 dating apps I swore I'd never touch. I swiped, I answered DMs that opened with "Hey" and "You up" and "You into live music." I went for coffee with a guy who couldn't stop talking about crypto, and wine with another who didn't bring his wallet, and brunch with someone who wanted a second mom for his bulldog and a part-time housekeeper. I kept thinking I'd feel that click of possibility. It didn't come. I'd walk home, kick off my shoes in the hallway, and wonder what it was I thought I was looking for. I told myself I wanted decisive, strong, someone who could handle me, the way I'd said in my head for years. The truth was, I didn't know if I wanted any of those things anymore, or if I just didn't want to be the person who ended up alone in a house that felt too big. I kept a running script for anyone who asked. If anyone had asked, the divorce was for the best. Nolan wasn't the partner I needed. I'd find a better fit, someone with a spine and a plan. But every time his name hopped into view on my phone, another trail, another joke with Derek about blisters and bad coffee. There was a smaller voice under the rehearsed one. It said I'd misplayed the hand, that I was the problem in rooms I claimed were empty. It wasn't loud. It didn't shout. It just sat there, steady as a metronome, tapping out a beat I didn't want to follow. I swept the floors more. I reorganized the junk drawer he used to pretend didn't exist. I changed light bulbs and filters and the time on the microwave after daylight saving, the way he always did without comment. I found his old hoodie at the back of the hall closet, the one he wore when it got cold in the living room, and I stood there like an idiot with my fingers in the cuff, smelling the ghost of our laundry soap. Then I folded it and put it in a box for donation, closed the lid, and carried it to the trunk before I could change my mind. Sometimes I'd rehearse conversations that weren't going to happen. In the shower, I'd say, "I'm sorry," and try to keep saying it without adding a but. In the car at red lights, I'd picture calling him and imagine I could get the words out in the right order. Then the light would turn and I'd drive on. I still tell myself the line that helps me sleep. This had to happen. We weren't good together anymore. He needed someone who saw him the way he deserved. I needed someone who could pull me up short before I sharpened a joke. Maybe there's a version of me who learns faster. Maybe there's a version of us that bends and doesn't break. I don't live in those drafts, so I keep the house. He keeps the car. We split what we saved. He hikes. I scroll. He laughs with the guys. I practice being okay with the echo in these rooms. And when his picture pops up, at a peak I can't name, or on a sidewalk outside a place we never tried, I let the small, ruthless voice talk for a minute. It says I made this bed. It says I can stop blaming the alarm clock for the time on the screen. I don't say any of that out loud. Not to friends I don't have anymore. Not to family who would try to fix what's already gone. I make my coffee. I watered the plant he thought was fake for 2 years. I open the blinds. And I live with the quiet I fought so hard to win. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next story. Write in the comments from which city are you watching.